I always thought Lily and I were inseparable, connected by the kind of bond only sisters can understand. Having gone through life's ups and downs together, I never imagined a day would come when she'd be responsible for the kind of betrayal that leaves a mark. It was like this invisible thread between us had suddenly snapped, leaving me in stunned silence. When Grandma passed away, she decided to entrust me with her beautiful heirloom necklace, a piece that had been in the family for generations. That necklace wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of our family's strength, resilience, and the love Grandma showed us throughout her life. From the moment it was placed in my hands, I understood its importance, and so did Lily. She had often admired it as we both listened to Grandma recount stories of its history. The way jewels shone in candlelight during gatherings long gone, for a while the necklace sat safely in my jewelry box, its comforting weight a reminder of Grandma's warmth and wisdom. But one day, as I was getting ready for an event, I noticed its absence. At first, I thought I had misplaced it, perhaps left it at a friend's house or somewhere equally mundane. But as days turned into weeks, a nagging suspicion settled in my mind. Lily had always been the only other person with a key to my apartment. I never questioned her access or intentions. After all, we had shared everything growing up, our secrets, dreams, and fears. So, when I first confronted her about the missing necklace, I fully expected her to help me search for it, maybe laugh at my forgetfulness. But instead, she simply shrugged, a look of mild confusion on her face that did little to quell my growing unease. Her denial sounded hollow, lacking the typical warmth and sincerity I associated with her. It was hard to think of my sister as capable of deception, yet doubts kept surfacing. Each time I revisited our conversation in my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. So, I decided to dig deeper, driven by a need to uncover the truth, however painful it might be. I started by looking into online auction sites, thinking it a long shot, but then there it was. My grandmother's necklace, unmistakably listed for sale. The seller's contact information read like a punch to the gut. It was Lily's. At that moment, the world seemed to tilt. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, was thrown into chaos. My breath hitched as I sat there staring at the screen, trying to make sense of the betrayal. The depth of her actions was difficult to process. I knew then that our relationship might never recover. I reached out to the buyer, a kind stranger who listened patiently as I explained the situation. They expressed genuine sympathy for my predicament and graciously agreed to return the necklace to me if I could reimburse them. It was a gesture that warmed my heart amid the cold reality of Lily's actions. I wasted no time in arranging the exchange, eager to have this treasured piece of my family history back where it belonged. Once the necklace was safely in my possession again, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sorrow. It was the culmination of a journey I hadn't wanted to take, forced upon me by someone I had trusted completely. Despite the pain of it all, in having the necklace back, I felt a measure of justice had been restored. But I couldn't let this go unaddressed. Lily had to understand the gravity of what she'd done, not only to my trust, but also to the legacy that necklace represented. I sat down and wrote her a letter, pouring out my disappointment, recounting the steps I took to reclaim what was rightfully ours. I wanted her to know that the bond we had could never be the same, not after this. It wasn't written in anger, but rather in a hope that she would realize the severity of her actions. The next time our paths crossed at a family gathering, I wore the necklace. Seeing her glance in my direction, her eyes filled with something between regret and shame, I knew she finally grasped the full cost of her actions. There was no need for words. The silence between us spoke volumes. In that moment, though our relationship remained altered, I felt a quiet sense of triumph knowing the necklace was back where it belonged. And the lesson, however hard-earned, was clear. After Grandma passed, it took me a while to wrap my head around life without her. She was the heart of our family, the threads that held everything together. The day she entrusted me with her necklace was seared into my memories, a simple but beautiful moment, laden with unspoken affection. The necklace wasn't just jewelry. It was a tapestry of family history passed down through generations, each wearer adding their own tale to its legacy. Lily was there with me that day, her eyes lingering on the necklace as Grandma fastened it around my neck. She gave me one of those rare, genuine smiles, the kind that reaches the eyes and stays with you long after. "Take care of it," she had said, her voice soft yet resolute. I had nodded, firmly understanding the weight of her words. Fast forward a few years, and life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Lily and I were close, as sisters often are, sharing secrets, dreams, and occasional mischief. But in the back of my mind, Grandma's words echoed, a constant reminder of the trust placed upon me. Then, the day came when I noticed the necklace missing, the familiar hollow feeling in my chest growing with each frantic search. I retraced my steps, turned my apartment inside out, but it was gone, vanished without a trace. The only other person with access to my place was Lily. A peculiar dread crept in as I realized what this meant. When I brought it up to her, my voice was choosing my words with care not to accuse too hastily. I expected her to share in my alarm, to help me scour every inch of my home or at least offer comfort. Instead, she feigned confusion, eyebrows raised in an exaggerated arc of surprise. She claimed ignorance. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Her dismissal felt like a slap. The easy way she brushed aside my concern left a bitter taste. A part of me clung to the hope that I had misunderstood, that maybe I was wrong about her. But the seed of suspicion had been planted, and it grew, twisting into something much darker. Determined to uncover the truth, I began my own investigation. Slivers of suspicion became tangible evidence when I stumbled across an online auction. There it was, Grandma's necklace displayed like a common trinket, its photo a painful confirmation. The seller's contact information sent a shiver through me. It was Lily's. The moment of realization was a strange mix of betrayal and clarity. My heart ached, but my mind was set on retrieving what was ours. I reached out to the buyer, my message tinged with desperation but underscored by honesty. To my relief, the buyer was understanding, agreeing to return the necklace for the price paid. I counted the money with shaking hands, a small price for reclaiming a piece of my soul. When it was finally in my possession again, I felt a flood of emotion, a complex mix of triumph and sadness. I sat down at my desk, the necklace glinting beside me, as I composed a letter to Lily. Every word was chosen with care, not to wound but to enlighten. I wanted her to know how deeply her actions had cut, not just through the thin thread of sisterly trust, but through the fabric of our family history. Trying to balance my emotions, I explained how I'd retrieved the necklace and what that journey had entailed, hoping she would grasp the gravity of what she had done. When I saw her next, at a family gathering, the air between us was thick with unspoken apologies and festering wounds. I wore Grandma's necklace, the cool metal a reassuring presence against my skin. Her eyes widened, a flicker of shock passing through them before she quickly averted her gaze, as though afraid of what she'd see in mine. The silence between us was heavy, but I refused to break it. Lily eventually approached me, her expression a mix of remorse and something else, a flickering understanding that perhaps, finally, she had realized the full cost of her betrayal. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came, just a tentative glance at the necklace that said more than any apology could. In that moment, I felt a strange peace settle over me, a quiet victory not just for retrieving the necklace but for maintaining the dignity that Grandma's legacy deserved. We stood there amidst the noise of family chatter and clinking glasses, an island of unresolved tension surrounded by the sea of everyday life. Lily couldn't meet my eyes for long, her gaze flickering back to the ground as if the weight of her actions would crush her under its scrutiny. I didn't need to hear her say sorry. The remorse was etched into every line of her face, the sag of her shoulders, the hesitant way she turned to leave. There's a delicate balance to justice and forgiveness, a dance between holding on and letting go. For now, the necklace was back where it belonged, its tales untold by betrayal but secured by perseverance. In some way, it felt like Grandma was there too, her presence a warm reminder in a room full of cold conclusions. As the gathering continued, I found myself watching Lily, not with anger, but with a kind of acceptance. We might never return to the easy camaraderie we once shared, but maybe, just maybe, we'd find a new path forward. And if not, I had already taken the first step toward healing, holding on to the legacy that mattered most. I glanced around my apartment, every corner holding the ghost of something cherished. The absence of the necklace felt like a chill creeping through the walls, whispering of loss and betrayal. I knew deep down that Lily was the only other person who could have taken it. She was the only one I trusted with a key. So when I called her to meet me, I hoped there would be some misunderstanding, a simple explanation that would restore what felt so broken. When she arrived, her face was a mask of friendliness, the kind she wore when she thought everything was fine. I tried to keep my voice steady as I spoke, but the accusation hung heavy between us. "Lily," I said, "have you seen Grandma's necklace?" She looked at me with wide eyes, the innocence in them almost mocking. "No," she replied. "I don't know what you're talking about." As if she could erase the truth with a simple denial, as if her words could redirect reality. My heart twisted and I felt my fingers clenching, aching for some tangible proof of her deceit. But I didn't push further in that moment. A part of me needed to believe her, needed to cling to the hope that my sister hadn't betrayed me. I nodded slowly, choosing not to argue. Maybe I misplaced it, I said, though the words felt like vinegar on my lips. Her expression shifted slightly, a flicker of relief that was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced with a smile that never reached her eyes. Days passed in a blur, each moment clouded by mistrust, the air thick with unspoken tension. Whenever I saw her, the topic lay between us like a bridge burned to ashes, leaving only the charred remains of what once was. Then, in the quiet of my small home office, I stumbled upon an online auction. There it was, Grandma's necklace, unmistakable in the photo, its intricate design a testament to its history. Beneath the listing, the contact information spelled it out, leaving no room for doubt. Lily's name, her email, her betrayal laid bare for the world to see. My chest tightened, a cold fury settling in. I couldn't understand how she could have done this, taken something so precious and pawned it off as if it were nothing more than an ordinary trinket. The love and trust we had shared felt tarnished, every memory now colored by this singular act of treachery. But I wasn't going to let it end there. I took a deep breath, reaching out to the buyer, hoping they'd have a heart, hoping they'd listen. Explaining the situation felt like peeling back a wound, but to my relief, they agreed to return it for the price they paid. It was a small miracle in the sea of disappointment. With the necklace back in my hands, its weight comforting and familiar, I realized something had changed irreparably. This wasn't just about an heirloom lost and found. It was about the fracture in the foundation of trust, a scar that would take much more than apologies to heal. I sat down with a pen and paper. The old-fashioned way felt right for this. I poured out my heart in a letter, each word a step toward reclamation, not just of the necklace but of my own peace of mind. I explained how I had found the truth, how her betrayal cut deeper than she could ever imagine. The finality in my words was not a plea for reconciliation but a declaration of boundaries. When I sealed the envelope, I felt a strange calm, a sense of having reclaimed something more than an object. I hadn't sought revenge, not in the traditional sense, but in reclaiming the necklace, I had also reclaimed my agency, my ability to define what I would no longer tolerate. The next time I saw Lily, it was at a family gathering, a place that once meant warmth and laughter. Her eyes found mine as soon as she walked in, and I watched the realization dawn on her. She understood. The necklace lay visible around my neck, a silent testament to resilience, its presence speaking louder than any confrontation could. Her look of remorse was palpable, and for the first time I saw the cracks in her facade, the way guilt weighed her down. In that moment, there was no anger left in me, only a quiet acceptance of what was. We had our separate lives now, shaped by choices and consequences. As the evening wore on, I found a strange sense of peace amid the chaos of chatter and clinking glasses. The necklace was safe with me, and with it the memories of Grandma, the legacy she had passed down, now a quiet beacon of strength and continuity. Lily and I exchanged a few words, her voice acknowledging what had happened without really saying it. The path ahead wasn't clear, but I knew that forgiveness, if it came, would be on my terms and my timeline. The gathering continued without pause, yet something significant had shifted. I felt the weight of the necklace not just as an heirloom, but as a symbol of my perseverance and the lessons learned. The family continued to talk, laugh, and engage around us, oblivious to the unspoken conversations woven between glances and silences. I knew that healing wasn't a destination I'd arrive at overnight. It was a journey, and each step forward was a testament to strength, not just in holding on, but in knowing when to let go. And so, with the necklace secure and the past acknowledged, I began to focus on a future shaped by resilience and the indelible ties of my own making. With a heavy heart, I sat at my computer, the dim light of the screen illuminating the room in a soft bluish glow. I knew I had to find answers, even if the truth might unravel the last thread of trust I had left in Lily. My hands trembled slightly as I typed search terms into the auction website. Grandma's necklace was distinctive enough that I hoped it wouldn't be buried in a sea of similar listings. Moments later, my pulse quickened. There it was, unmistakably, under the harsh, scrutinizing lens of a photograph that laid bare its intricate filigree. The bidding had ended just a few days ago. Its delicate chain seemed to gleam with an irony I couldn't yet bear. I scrolled down further, my heart sinking as I read the contact details. In an instant, my worst suspicions coalesced into stark reality. It was Lily's information. For a moment, time seemed to slow, the air around me dense with disbelief and a growing sense of betrayal. My sister, who had shared my life and my trust, had taken something so precious and sold it. I slumped back in my chair, grappling with the knowledge that hit me with the force of a betrayal I hadn't foreseen. My thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and hurt, questions colliding with each other in a chaotic rush. I knew I needed to act swiftly. The buyer's profile was still accessible, and with it, a slender thread of hope that I might retrieve the necklace. Summoning a courage I wasn't sure I possessed, I crafted a message to the buyer. I explained the situation, attempting to convey the depth of sentimental value embedded in the piece they'd unknowingly purchased. My words were earnest, my appeal sincere, as I asked whether they might consider returning it for the price they paid, a simple transaction that offered a chance to right this wrong, at least in part. Then began the waiting. Every tick of the clock seemed to echo in the silence of my small apartment. I oscillated between hope and despair, replaying every conversation, every moment of brotherly love and sisterly support that now seemed tainted. In the end, the buyer's response came swifter than I expected. Their understanding was humbling, and beneath their words, I sensed an unexpectedly kind heart. They agreed to return the necklace, their empathy a balm on my frayed nerves. Relief washed over me in waves, yet mingled with it still was the sting of betrayal and the challenge of facing Lily. I knew I couldn't let this pass without confronting her, but I realized any conversation we had would not be on her terms. The narrative of lies and deceit unraveling at her hands meant that my words would be controlled, deliberate, revealing the hurt but maintaining my composure. In the quiet night, I drafted a letter to Lily, one that would tell her what words failed to capture in person. I wrote of my disappointment, the pain she'd caused, and the steps I took to reclaim what she had taken. I wanted her to understand that our relationship had altered irrevocably. I sent the letter with a clarity of purpose that felt foreign yet empowering. This was my voice, my truth being told without hesitation or fear. When I finally met Lily again, it was at a family gathering, the presence of others both a comfort and a boundary. She approached me cautiously, her eyes avoiding mine initially, then meeting them with a silent plea of regret and acknowledgement. As I stood there, the necklace resting against my skin, I saw in her eyes the realization of what she'd done. The weight of her actions pressed visibly on her shoulders, and for the first time I saw not just my hurt, but hers too. A hurt born from a chain of her own making. That gathering was a turning point. I understood now that moving forward would require not just holding onto the necklace, but holding onto my sense of self, my ability to rise above her betrayal and find peace within. Whatever lay ahead with Lily, I'd face it knowing the value of integrity and the boundaries I needed to maintain. The paths of the past and future stretched out before me, and I walked this corridor of time with renewed purpose. I was more than just someone wronged. I was someone who could stand, with dignity, against deceit and emerge with a story that was, in its way, its own triumph. In the days that followed, I continued to reflect on what all this meant for me and my family. There was no easy resolution, no perfect reconciliation waiting in the wings, yet there was clarity, and with it a sense of peace that slowly replaced the turmoil within. I had taken the steps I needed to reclaim what was mine, and in doing so, I had reclaimed a part of myself. Each time I glanced at Grandma's necklace, there was a reminder not just of her, but of the resilience it took to face betrayal and the strength it took to heal. Lily and I might never return to where we once were, but I could move forward, carrying the lessons learned with each step. In the end, perhaps that was enough. A path forward that recognized the past but wasn't shackled by it, a journey that wove forgiveness and fortitude into its fabric. And with each fiber, I knew I was weaving my own legacy, one born of truth, and the unyielding strength to move beyond betrayal into the calm embrace of self-reliance and newfound hope. When I realized what Lily had done, disbelief and anger took turns squeezing my heart. But I knew I had to stay calm if I was going to undo this mess. It wasn't just about the necklace. It was about restoring a piece of my world that had been torn away. I found the buyer's contact information from the auction site, my fingers hesitating for a moment before typing out an email. I introduced myself, explaining the situation as calmly and truthfully as I could. I wrote about Grandma, how much the necklace meant to me, and how it ended up in their possession without my consent. I didn't want to come across as desperate, even though that's exactly how I felt. Instead, I focused on the story, hoping that the buyer on the other side would see the truth in my words. Days passed, each one stretching longer with the weight of anticipation. And then, finally, a reply landed in my inbox. Opening the email, my eyes flickered over the words, my heart racing at the kindness I found within. The buyer, a woman named Clara, expressed sympathy for my predicament. She understood the significance of heirlooms and agreed to return the necklace for the price she had paid, plus shipping, of course. I breathed a sigh of relief, gratitude flooding through me as I realized this stranger's goodwill was a lifeline back to something I thought I might have lost forever. I arranged the payment immediately, eager to have Grandma's necklace within my grasp. While waiting for the package to arrive, I couldn't help but replay the events in my mind. Lily's betrayal felt like a wound that refused to heal. The audacity of what she'd done, how she could feign ignorance so convincingly, it was a betrayal layered with lies and deceit. I knew confronting her again wouldn't change the past, but the thought of letting her off without consequence felt wrong. When the package arrived, the sight of the familiar velvet box nearly brought tears to my eyes. I opened it gently, the necklace resting inside like a treasure returned from some far-off land. I held it, letting the cool metal touch my skin, feeling the connection to Grandma settle around me, comforting and enduring. There was a choice before me, either let the anger fester or find a way to move forward. I decided a letter to Lily would be my path. I wanted her to understand the gravity of what she had done, not out of spite, but in hope of clarity for both of us. I wrote about the hurt, the disappointment, and the steps I took to reclaim the necklace. There was no room for malice in my words, only a firm recounting of events and the impact they had on me. I mailed the letter, knowing it was the last piece of this saga. With the necklace back, I found myself at a crossroads between holding on to the bitterness or embracing the healing journey ahead. As the days turned into weeks, the world seemed to open ever so slightly, a testament to resilience and the enduring strength of family ties, even when they frayed. The next time I saw Lily was at a family gathering. I wore the necklace, resolute in displaying what I had fought so hard to regain. When she saw it, the flicker of recognition and remorse in her eyes was unmistakable. She approached, the hush of the room settling as we stood face to face. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, attempting an apology. But I held up a hand, not wanting to rehash what we both already knew. I didn't argue. Instead, I let silence speak for me, a pause laden with all that had transpired. It wasn't forgiveness I offered in that moment, but acknowledgement that her actions had changed things forever. The necklace sat against my skin, a reminder of what had been lost and found. And in that silent exchange, we both understood that some things could never return to what they once were. My decision to confront the betrayal and reclaim my heritage had paved a way forward that needed no verbal closure from Lily. The presence of Grandma's necklace spoke louder than any words between us ever could. As the gathering continued, I realized how much lighter I felt, the burden of betrayal no longer weighing me down. The necklace shimmered subtly, catching the light, a beacon of hope and strength I proudly carried. With each step, I carved a path that honored the past without being bound by it, embracing the future with a heart made whole once again. As I sat in the quiet of my living room, the necklace once again resting close to my heart, I felt a sense of relief. But beneath that relief was a current of pain that refused to ebb. I realized I needed Lily to understand, not just with words, but with an unforgettably clear truth, what her actions had cost our bond. I sat down at my small writing desk, the same one where Grandma used to pen her letters to me as a child, and poured out my feelings with deliberate intent. I told Lily how much the necklace meant to me, how it symbolized not just our family history, but also a promise of trust and love passed down from Grandma. But more than that, I wrote of how it felt to have that trust severed so carelessly, the weight of her deceit like a stone in my chest. With every word, I peeled back layers of hurt, exposing them like raw wounds I hoped she could finally see. My hand shook slightly as I placed the letter in an envelope. It was a small gesture, but it held the weight of our fractured relationship, now as fragile as glass. A few days later, I slipped the letter into her mailbox. I didn't wait to see her reaction. I walked away, the sound of my footsteps echoing my resolve. I knew the path to healing wouldn't be easy, but it was a road I was ready to walk alone if necessary. Weeks passed, and though I didn't hear from Lily, the silence spoke volumes. The letter had placed a mirror in front of her, forcing her to confront the reflection she had avoided. Our family gatherings were different now. An unspoken tension lingered in the air whenever we were both present. I could feel her eyes on me at times, a mix of curiosity and remorse that she couldn't quite conceal. One afternoon, while out running errands, I found myself near the small cafe Lily loved. On impulse, I stepped inside, the familiar smell of roasted coffee beans wrapping around me, like ormond of roke, and sat at a corner table, thinking more about bygone days than anything else. As fate would have it, Lily walked in, her gaze first distracted before settling on me. I saw her hesitate, the faintest flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. She approached, her movements cautious, a tentative truce woven into each step. The cafe was quiet, the soft hum of conversations creating a fragile bubble around us. She took a seat across from me, her usual confidence replaced by invulnerability that was almost palpable. Her eyes held a mixture of guilt and something I dared to hope was understanding. "Hi," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, acknowledging her presence without offering anything more. The pause that followed was heavy, filled with all the things left unsaid between us. "I got your letter," she started, her words halting. I, I'm sorry. I didn't realize." Her voice trailed off, a myriad of silent apologies speaking louder in the quiet. "You didn't realize?" I repeated, my tone echoing my disbelief. It was a statement more than a question, and we both knew it. The silence stretched again, but this time it was different. More reflective, less accusatory. She looked down, her fingers tracing idle patterns on the table. "It was stupid what I did," she admitted, glancing up to meet my gaze. "I was desperate for money and I thought it wouldn't matter." Her confession hung in the air between us, fragile as the first snowflake. "But it did matter, Lily," I replied, my voice steady but laced with the echoes of our broken trust. "It mattered because it's about more than just the necklace. It's about us, about losing something we can't easily get back." She nodded slowly, the gravity of my words sinking in. I could see it in her eyes, the realization of what she'd truly lost. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, her voice small but sincere. "I know," I replied, maintaining the barrier that time had built between us. "But maybe one day things can be different." I stood then, leaving her with the remnants of our conversation. As I walked away, the weight of her betrayal felt lighter, no longer pressing down on my chest. The necklace, a reminder of strength regained, was warm against my skin, its presence a reminder of the past, yet a beacon towards the future. In the weeks that followed, Lily and I maintained a cautious distance, a delicate dance of tentative steps forward with careful glances back. It was a newfound rhythm we both needed to learn, a balance between acknowledging the pain and allowing space for potential healing. Whether we would ever fully mend was a question I no longer needed to answer immediately. For now, I found solace in the knowledge that I had reclaimed what was mine, not just the necklace, but my sense of self and my belief in the strength that I alone possessed. As autumn leaves turned and fell, accompanied by the whispers of inevitable change, I understood that healing is its own journey, one that cannot be rushed or forced. It moves at its own pace, like the changing seasons, allowing time to soften edges and warm what has been left cold. And so, I carried on, step by step, with a heart that had weathered the storm, and came out, not unscathed, but resilient. The necklace, with all its memories and meaning, rested serenely against my skin. A symbol of my journey not just through betrayal, but toward a brighter horizon. I knew that, like the necklace, I too had been tempered, made stronger, more precious by the fire of experience. And in that knowledge, I found peace. Once the necklace was safely back in my possession, I sat at my desk, staring at a blank piece of paper. My mind reeled, replaying every moment of Lily's betrayal. I knew I had to confront her, not with shouts or anger, but with calm clarity. I needed her to understand the depth of the pain she'd inflicted, but I also wanted to preserve a sliver of dignity for myself. So I began to write. The words came slowly at first, each one carefully chosen to convey my disappointment without tipping into bitterness. I told her how much Grandma's necklace meant to me, how it wasn't just an heirloom but a cherished connection to our past. The hurt of losing something so precious, compounded by knowing it was her actions that caused it, was not something I could easily forgive. I outlined the steps I'd taken to find the necklace, how I'd traced it back to her with disbelief and growing anguish. Each discovery felt like another blow, striking deeper into the trust we once shared. As I explained these steps, I hoped she'd grasp the grave nature of her actions. When I mentioned the buyer's kindness in returning the necklace, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow wash over me. Relief that I had it back, sorrow that it came to this, reclaiming what should never have been lost in the first place. I made sure to detail this not to shame her, but to show her the kindness of strangers contrasted starkly against her betrayal. Finally, I turned to the future, or rather the absence of the one we'd envisioned. I told her that our relationship could never be the same. Trust, once broken, is not easily mended. I wasn't shutting the door on her, but rather acknowledging that a new boundary had to be drawn. I signed my name with a hand that felt steady, even as my heart remained heavy. I slipped the letter into an envelope with a quiet resolve and left it on her doorstep the next morning. As I walked away, the morning air was crisp and full of potential. Somehow it felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable shift that would follow. I inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of what I had done, and exhaled slowly, releasing the burden with each step I took away from her. In the days that followed, I stayed busy, focusing on work and the small, comforting routines of daily life. Yet a part of me waited for a sign, for any response from Lily. As autumn leaves continued to fall, it felt as if time had suspended itself around this unresolved tension. When I finally saw Lily again at a family gathering, the atmosphere was thick with unsaid words, each one echoing in the space between us. She glanced at me, her eyes lingering on the necklace resting against my collarbone, its presence a silent testament to the truth I had reclaimed. Her face was a complex tapestry of emotions: remorse, shame, and a flicker of something like understanding. There was no need for a confrontation, no need for any words. The necklace spoke for itself, a tangible reminder of the story I had written, not just in that letter, but in every moment since. I met her gaze with a calm, deliberate nod, acknowledging that she now understood the full weight of her choices. In that brief, charged moment, I realized something shifted. No longer did I feel the anger that had once consumed me. Instead, there was a quiet acceptance, a recognition that healing comes not from forcing forgiveness, but from acknowledging the hurt and choosing to move beyond it. As the gathering unfolded around us, I felt a sense of peace settle within me, one that had been elusive since the necklace disappeared. I wore it proudly, not just as an accessory, but as an emblem of resilience, a reminder that while Lily's actions had marked our relationship indelibly, they had not defined me. I chose not to speak to Lily further, but simply enjoyed the company's warmth, the laughter shared among family. In that moment, I knew I was surrounded by those who upheld me, who valued the bonds of trust and respect. It was here that I felt truly at home, in the presence of people who reminded me of the strength found in genuine connection. Though I hadn't planned for revenge, knowing Lily's understanding was enough. Her realization was its own kind of justice, more profound than any words I could have spoken. For now, that was enough. I took comfort in the knowledge that I had reclaimed both the necklace and my own narrative, writing it anew with each choice and every deliberate step forward. Lily and I might never return to the way we once were, but that was a journey for another time. In the present, the path forward was clear: to embrace those who chose honesty and love, to cherish the necklace's history while forging new memories, and to continue walking toward that brighter horizon I had glimpsed before. With the weight of betrayal lifted, I felt lighter, more grounded. The future beckoned with promise, one not marred by deceit, but illuminated by the strength I had found within myself. It was a new beginning, and for that I was grateful. The family gathering was in full swing when I arrived, the usual hum of chatter filling the room. I walked in, greeted by familiar faces and the comforting warmth of home. As I moved through the space, I felt the soft weight of Grandma's necklace resting against my collarbone, a silent testament to resilience and the value of truth. Lily was there, of course, standing near the corner with a drink in hand. Our eyes met briefly across the room, and in that moment I saw the shift in her expression, a subtle mix of regret and recognition. It was clear she knew what she had lost, though we hadn't exchanged words. The look in her eyes spoke volumes, far more than any apology could convey. As the evening progressed, I found myself surrounded by laughter and stories, enveloped by the presence of those who showed up not just in times of joy, but also in the midst of adversity. The necklace felt at home here, amidst people who understood its significance, almost as if Grandma herself were part of the gathering. When I finally approached Lily, the room seemed to quiet, though perhaps that was just in my mind. She greeted me tentatively, her usual confidence tempered by something new, a hesitance that mirrored the shift in our bond. I nodded, acknowledging her presence, the air between us charged with unspoken understanding. "You look well," she started, her voice wavering slightly. I responded with a quiet smile, a nod, and something that felt like forgiveness. "Thank you," I replied, my tone steady, deliberate. "And thank you for noticing the necklace. It means the world to me." For a moment, it seemed as though the room held its breath, waiting for what would come next. Lily's eyes flickered to the necklace, then back to mine. I'm sorry, she said, the words unsteady, almost swallowed by the self-inflicted weight of her actions. I took a breath, allowing the truth of the situation to settle. I know, I replied, maintaining my gaze. But you need to understand that some things can never be the same. The words hung between us, heavy yet liberating in their honesty. As the night wore on, I found solace in the company of family whose loyalties never wavered. We laughed, shared stories, and created new memories. The evening filled with hope and genuine connection, it was a reminder of what truly mattered, a reinforcement of the values I held close. Lily mingled through the crowd, her demeanor more subdued, aware of the boundaries now set between us. I noticed her watching from a distance, perhaps realizing that her actions had permanently altered the landscape of our relationship. But this was a gathering for love and renewal, a place where the past wasn't forgotten but transformed into something that could support growth. As the night came to a close, I felt a quiet sense of triumph. This wasn't a victory marked by grand gestures or loud declarations. Rather, it was a victory of understanding, the silent reclamation of my own story. I had chosen to wear the necklace not just as a symbol of past pain, but as a beacon of healing. With a final glance at Lily across the room, I accepted both the losses and gains, remembering that we all walk our own paths, sometimes intersecting in ways we least expect. My journey with her might never return to where it started, but it had led me here, to the heart of my family, and to a stronger, more genuine sense of self. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I felt ready to embrace the new beginnings ahead, defined not by betrayal, but by the light of truth and resilience. This was my story now, rewritten and renewed, and for that I was truly grateful.